Okay, in this topic, we're going to start talking about job analyses and what they are. So first, we're going to have a little talk about, well, what are job analyses? And then once we've kind of laid out what they are, then we'll kind of talk about their purpose in some kind of ways, or what they become, or what are the products of them. Okay, so let us start. Okay, in order to help us understand a job analysis, we've got to have a couple of terms. An element is a unit of work activity, the smallest unit. A task is multiple elements performed to achieve an objective. I like that. Okay. A position can be defined in terms of the tasks that an individual performs. All right. Interesting. You are a sum of the tasks you perform. All right. A job is a collection of positions that are similar enough. So you could have 10 people that have the same job of assembly line worker, but their exact position might be slightly different because they do slightly different tasks. Okay? And so a very common phrase here is KSAOs. Sometimes you'll hear KSAs, sometimes you hear KSOs. So KSAO, whatever, but knowledge, skills, abilities, and other characteristics. And so we might say the KSAs needed are, okay, in fact, when I assess, I have many hats, by the way. One of my hats is the psychology department assessment coordinator. And in my job as the assessment coordinator, my job is to figure out the KSAOs that you, the psychology majors, will need for successful job performance. But of course, each and every one of you will be having radically different jobs, and so career success is perhaps what it comes down to. And my job is to assess whether or not you have those KSAs. It's kind of an interesting idea that is, in fact, useful far beyond IO psych. So a job analysis is the process of defining a job in terms of its tasks or duties and in terms of the knowledge and skills required. In other words, the KSAOs. Okay? And so there's different procedures for doing so. Okay? A job analysis, incredibly important. I mean, think about this. How could you imagine evaluating performance? Can you imagine your job, you're the supervisor, and you need to evaluate whether an employee is doing a good job, but you don't have a description of what that job is? Well, good luck with that, because you haven't even got your starting point to work with. Huh? And so a job analysis, and this slide is a beautiful slide, and it's in many ways it could have been put into the next video. I'm going to talk about products of job analysis. But a job analysis is used, as I said, to evaluate a job and to figure out compensation. How can you evaluate whether or not somebody's done a good job or compensate them for having done a good job? A job description. Yeah, you want to hire new employees. You want to train them. Well, if you can't get an accurate job description, there's no point. Job specifications. Who should you select? Who should be placed in which position? So clearly, almost everything about the industrial side of IO Psych is really, hinging on having an accurate job analysis. And there's two main approaches to job analysis. Task-oriented and worker-oriented. And we'll kind of look at these, and there's some overlaps between them. They're not like clearly distinct from each other. But task-oriented approaches to job analysis are specific to the job. They talk about, well, tasks necessary to perform the job. The worker-oriented one would focus more on the workers that fill the job rather than the tasks involved. And then, of course, hybrid methods is a way of saying, hey, task-oriented has some advantages and disadvantages. Work-oriented has some advantages and disadvantages. What the hell? Let's put them together. Right? That's what hybrid usually means. All right. So, as we said, look at that. Yeah. Right there. One size does not fit all. Hence, that's why we have the hybrid approaches. We find, though, within task-oriented approach techniques, there's two kinds, and within worker-oriented, there's three kinds, essentially. Two, but whatever. We'll talk about them in somewhat details. Okay? And so the task inventory approach, what's going to happen is you're going to take subject matter experts. These are people that are either in the job, incumbents, or ones that are experts for some other reason, that know the job. And then the incumbents are going to take a list of statements describing jobs and check off which ones they do in their job. Okay, so if you do this across the bunch, you'll get a listing of the tasks done by a job, hence task-oriented approaches. Okay? And so as an example, this might be a task inventory for a college professor. This is kind of a cute one. I like this. And so develops written assignments. And so here's what will happen. A subject matter expert. Hey, wait, I'm a subject matter expert. Okay, develops written assignments. Um, is task done on this? Yes. Look at assignment 3, right? Oh, developed. Okay. Importance to task. How important is my ability to develop written assignments? I'd give it a 4. All right. It's not extremely important. I can write shitty poorly written assignments. Right, but yeah, okay. Relative to other tasks performed on the job, how much time is spent on each of the following? How much time do I spend on developing written assignments? Somewhat, I'd give that a 2, 3. Trust me, these lectures take a whole lot more time to prepare than those assignments do. And so on and on and on, right? And so you go through the tasks, are they or are they not performed? How important are they? How much time you spend on? And so you're trying to get a picture of the job based on the tasks performed on the job as reported by the subject matter experts. Very interesting. A functional job analysis. What you're going to try to do is take task statements and break them into 3 categories: data, people, and things. Okay, and so it's going to sort of like break it down and say how many of these tasks require, how many require, how many require. And in this example, right? Well, this functional job analysis of data, people, and things was what was used as the basis for forming the Dictionary of Occupational Titles. The DOT is a wonderful thing. It's a little bit outdated nowadays, as we'll find the ONET in a couple of slides up. But the Dictionary of Occupational Titles, it's the U.S. Labor Bureau, some U.S. government puts it together. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so it codes jobs according to data, people, things, and dimensions. Often this kind of approach can be used, say, for example, for career services at the university, will often take you and get an assessment of you. Oh, what is your abilities? What are your interests? What do you enjoy? Maybe they'll use a strong interest inventory. Maybe they'll use the Myers-Briggs, all kinds of different things. But the attempt in that kind of work at career services is to, in fact, match you up on the data, people, and things dimensions to fit a job. So here's an example of a DOT, Dictionary of Occupational Titles for a college professor. And so it breaks it down into an occupational code, whatever. A title, faculty member, college or university. Okay. Then a lead statement, which it breaks down very briefly, conducts college or university courses, very brief description. And then take a look, there's task elements and again, these all came out of a job analysis, right? Okay. More recently, after the DOT, there's an online version of the ONET, and it's beautiful. Though here we're talking about data, people, and things, the ONET, in my experience, is more based on KSAs, knowledge, skills, and aptitudes, but it also includes interests. And so you're able to search for jobs and sort jobs based on what skills do I have, what abilities do I have, what interests do I have. And so it really, it's a beautiful, and by the way, the ONET is beautiful because it not only is essentially a giant job analysis of all the jobs in the country, but it also brings together information such as anticipated job markets, where do you work, and it's quite an amazing free tool, I must say. Take advantage of it. And so the ONET will break down the jobs into the worker-oriented, task-oriented, occupation-specific. I recommend you all take a look at the ONET. go and check it out. The ONET is a beautiful, beautiful resource. It's totally free, this ONET Center. Go check it out. It's pretty cool. You can sort jobs in multiple ways. Now, task-oriented approaches are cheap, quick. You just got a couple of workers, whip out a task list of tasks and pick. You can survey it quickly. You can quantify pretty quickly, right? Because I mean, as we saw up on this one, that's a pretty good, easy to quantify. Yes, I do it is very important. All right, it's a pretty straightforward quantification. I mean, if you pick 3, it's a 3, right? And so here it is. But they can take time. They can be too focused on specific jobs, perhaps. And because each worker's job, as we said, you might have 10 people that have, or 10 people that have the same job, assembly line worker, but their exact position might be different from each other, and so you might miss a commonality across the job because of the dissimilarities in each individual position. And so the worker-oriented approaches, as I say, are more likely to focus on elements of workers. And so what we find is the job element method, it kind of, it looks, I'll give you my view on this, that worker-oriented approaches are more likely to say, let's go find people that are successful on this job and describe who they are. Okay. Let's describe successful workers and then say what are the characteristics that successful workers have, and then use that as a way to describe who would be successful in the job. Okay? But again, subject matter experts are used to list job elements, work examples, things of this nature. Okay? And so here is perhaps a JEM. See, I forget all of these abbreviations. A job element method being done to create a job analysis of a college professor. And so it would be knowledgeable about subject matter, skilled in the interpretation of data, ability to communicate clearly. And so what this is rather than tasks themselves, but these are characteristics of workers that are successful. Okay, and it's really, I really find this to be a very interesting approach. A couple of years ago, I was on a committee at the university to identify. We were trying to implement critical thinking at the university. We had a reason that we had to deal with critical thinking, and I was on this committee to try to define critical thinking, and we were trying to define critical thinking and define it and define it. And I think we were stuck on this task-oriented approach, because the problem is that critical thinking, okay, let me go back to the notion of workers and jobs, jobs and positions, what I meant. And so what you find is that even though all of the students at the university are in fact students, okay, so they share the same, quote, job, but in each department, they have different positions, right? Because they're being asked to do different things. And so what we found was that the exact way that critical thinking would look in each different department would be different. And so how are we going to come up with a single metric, a single quantifiable metric, where we would define critical thinking across all departments? And so I didn't exactly know that I was doing this, but what I said, I approached this because I'm a behaviorist, and I said, okay, rather than trying to figure out, how it would look in all of these different, let's look at the behaviors, or, the way that successful students look. Okay? A successful student, or a student that does in fact exhibit critical thinking, will. And then there was a list of different behaviors, general behaviors such as knowledgeable about subject matter, but it's different obviously for a critical thinker. And so students that are critical thinkers will, I can remember some of them, approach a problem from multiple points of view. A student that is exhibiting critical thinking will recognize the biases in the subject matter that they're looking at, and a variety of different things that a student that is a critical thinker would exhibit. So very interesting idea. Rather than trying to define the job in terms of the task, you're looking at who is successful in the jobs. The PAQ, Position Analysis Questionnaire. It's a self-report taken by job incumbents, and essentially what happens is there's 187 items, and the incumbents will look at them and say, is this pertain to my job? Along a series, in fact, take a look at some of the things that might be here. Mental processes, what needs to be done, and things of this nature. The PAQ approaches are difficult because they require some relatively high-level reading skills, and some of the positions you'd like to analyze may not be filled with people that have college reading level experience, and it's not exactly appropriate for white-collar jobs because white-collar jobs don't have clearly defined tasks in the same kind of a way. So it didn't quite work that way. A newer approach is the Common Metric Questionnaire. 2,000 holy balls, organized in 80 dimensions, a 3-hour. Oy. However, again, you're trying to come up with a description of a successful worker on the job and work it that way. All right, so we've kind of got some idea of a job analysis. We break down the job either in terms of the tasks performed or the type of workers that are successful at the job. And then we try to use that analysis of job analysis to generate other things. So in the next video, we'll kind of talk about the products of job analysis or what we're going to do with that job analysis.